I want to firstly thank you guys for joining us today. I think this conversation is well needed at a time like this. One of the first topics that we want to kind of bring to the table and open up for discussion would be competency in navigating tough conversations within the vet medicine community. What do you guys feel about those type of situations where I guess clients come in and things come up and arise? How do you handle certain situations?
Well, I think that in a clinic or even a classroom, maybe a research laboratory, or here at the School of Veterinary Medicine, that in these situations, Darius, really what we're talking about is not being judgmental and rather being curious about learning about each other. Who is my client? Who are these students? I want to find out about them. That's going to increase my comfort level with talking to people, understanding issues they may face. I have to be accountable to go out into society and learn about the issues. The more I can relate to my client, the more successful I'm going to be. The more I can relate to my students, the better teacher I'll be. And when we can relate to each other, that makes an environment where people feel comfortable. We develop allyship because we start to learn about each other. And when we're allies and have that welcoming environment, guess what? We learn. We go outside our comfort zone and we become comfortable with that.
Another important building block to unity is addressing stereotypes. So, can a stereotype be good, or is it always necessarily a bad thing? And if it can be a good thing, how is that?
Stereotypes can be good. We deliberately set them up in a vet clinic or in a veterinary practice. We deliberately, why do we wear a stethoscope? I mean, basically we're not using it, it's hanging around my neck. I'm not actually nowhere near an animal yet, it's hanging around my neck. That's to telegraph to the client, okay, the doctor is now in town. And here we are, and we're going to actually examine your animal, and I should be taken seriously. So those are good things, but if you flip it and you think about clients, we really have no business stereotyping our clients. Everybody's different. Almost nobody fits a stereotype perfectly. In fact, probably no one. So you need to talk to them, find out where they are. When you're taking a history, when you're interviewing clients, everybody has a story that's unique and special. And that is really the bond that you will have with that client.
Yeah, the dean made some really great points on stereotypes, and I totally agree. I know a lot of us have been in a situation like that, whether it was in veterinary medicine or otherwise. And when you talk about veterinary medicine, how can we help the animal if we size a person up and assume, we're assuming lands us about whether they can afford treatment or not, and how are we helping the animal or the client? We start making assumptions about a person's personal situation, their socially what's going on with them, or socioeconomically. We don't know their story because the stereotype takes away from learning about the individual.
I actually like what you said there with how stereotypes can take away from the individual experience with the person. And I also like to attribute that in regards to my own community, because there are a few stereotypes that have been placed on us, and it's usually due to people seeing things in the media, whether it's the news, the internet, statistics, or just individual experiences, isolated experiences actually. And I kind of combat that or rebuttal that with my own personal experiences that I had to overcome too. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I was raised in a predominantly Black community. So I was surrounded in that, and I was, protected in that. So I didn't have to really worry about anything on the outlier. And we'll probably hear certain hateful comments and things like that. But in my view, I didn't think I would have to ever experience that. But to me, I understood that I had to step outside my comfort zone and say, you know what? I'm going down this path. I have to interact with different cultures, different communities. So I had to take it upon myself to say, you know what, let me take this risk and have those experiences. And I'm not going to say that those experiences were all good, because I did have a few bad experiences, but that didn't make me want to retreat back to my own shell and my comfort zone. And it didn't take me to a place where I wanted to box the entire community into one category just based on that few experiences. I said, you know what? You're not going to overpower what I know about, you know, the individuals that I met in different cultures and stuff. Like, I've made connections, whether it's classmates, colleagues, and coworkers, that I cherish way more than what that individual may have said to me offensively. That's why I always go back to making sure that education is there and understanding someone at a deeper connection and at an individual standpoint is in the forefront rather than just making assumptions. The next topic we want to bring to the forefront is microaggressions, and these may be questions, comments, or statements that we can't necessarily pinpoint as offensive or hurtful or hateful intentionally, but the person receiving them may take that and internalize it and feel it at a deeper level that someone might not understand. So when those things occur in clinics or in the workplace, how do we go about combating that, and how do we resolve it?
If we handle microaggressions in the moment, that's probably best. But what that implies is a very healthy environment, one in which everybody has permission to correct others in a certain environment. Many times we might not be in that kind of environment. If that's the case, I think a simple, well, that's not appropriate, or just a simple, wow, that hurt my feelings. I should also say to those who've made that microaggression, that's okay. You didn't know. It implies that you didn't mean to hurt anybody's feelings. You should be free to make mistakes.
When I think about it, I always remember when I didn't know what one was. I think we've all been there. We have said them, and like the dean just said, made mistakes. And the important thing to remember about microaggressions, two things, is number one, they're not malintended. The person actually saying them generally doesn't realize. I think the dean mentioned that. We don't even understand that that could be hurtful to someone. And the other side of that is the person receiving the microaggressions. What you may not know is they've heard that their whole life. We do have to be accountable. We have to understand, take a deep breath, not be defensive if we're told it's a microaggression. And I think that, like the dean said, is saying, you know, I might need to say I'm sorry for that. If someone tells me, you know, Dr. Gashin, you shouldn't have said that. That could be hurtful. It's like, whoa, I could be defensive, right? But instead, what we want to really do is take a deep breath and self-reflect. What did that mean to that person, and why did I say it?
So many people are exhibiting microaggressions and they don't even know it. And I think a very important thing to do would be for us to check ourselves when we see this stuff happening. Think about, if I was this other person, how would I feel if I said this, or if I posted that? If I was this or that, or if I were that person, how would I feel? And I think when we self-reflect and put ourselves in other people's shoes, I think it minimizes a lot of the microaggressions.
I'll quote Dr. Gashin. There's no statute of limitations on saying I'm sorry on this particular issue, because we're all growing. We're all trying to improve. And as we have more people trying to improve, that environment becomes more conducive to improvement. So everybody ends up being more on the same team and more able to deal with these issues in a very productive way.
Okay, a couple more points I want to add on to what you guys said about the microaggressions, especially in regards to people not necessarily knowing when they're coming off as microaggressive. A way that I think we can combat that is, again, getting to know a person at an individual standpoint and understanding the person. That way you're developing these conversations. It's easier when we understand the person and understand where they're coming from and what they feel on this and who they are really. I'd like to think of it as like your family members. So you have family members and friends that you have these deep bonds with and everything like that. So with that, you know what makes them tick, you know what makes them happy, sad, and their insecurities. So I feel like in the workplace, especially in regards to the vet environment or just in general, you just want to make sure that you're having that same courtesy there, because when you do that, you understand like, okay, let me not say this, or I'm not going to, make this statement because it can come across as offensive to this person that I'm going to see day in and day out. So once we have that, this kind of brings me to my next point of allyship. So when you know a person and you know what type of person they are and the type of, energy they bring around, you can advocate for them when you do see others coming off as microaggressive to them. And standing up. Personally, I've had the experience before where I had a certain statement said to me and a coworker stood up and acknowledged me, bare minimum. Just say, hey, Darius, I heard what that person said. I don't like it. I didn't agree with it. I hear you. I know that made you feel away, and that's not cool. Just simply saying that goes a long way. It made me feel personally like I'm not alone and I'm not, going crazy, or I'm not feeling as if no one is understanding who I am. So that's why I always say, make sure you understand the person at a deeper level. That's more important than just assuming that you know who that person is.
The last major key in seeing unification during an election year is respecting differences of opinion. I believe that it's a very important trait that we all should work on and we all should strive high to achieve. What are you all's opinions on differences of opinion, and how important is it, and how divisive can it be if we don't have this mutual respect for each other and each other's opinions?
So everybody has their opinion. I think that, and those opinions are valid. So that the real issue is the ability to listen. It's a bit of a learned skill. It's one in which we listen and acknowledge the other person, and we have to respect what they say. I think very often in the media and on social media, in a world where we are anonymous, potentially, on social media, those interactions can become, quite extreme and inflammatory. But that's not really what we are about as professionals or as team members.
We really have to pick and choose the conversations we're going to have in a work environment. We're working with a diverse group of people, and there are a lot of topics like politics that drive our emotions. One thing we have to remember is that when we talk about opinion and it becomes emotional, is that when we do express those opinions, we have to equally allow the other person to emphasize their opinions, and we have to be willing to listen. And if talking about politics is something that's going to affect us personally, very emotionally, if you're very emotional about it, you feel the heat and that flush come over you when the topic comes up, you may need to have a phrase in your back pocket. I would rather not talk about this subject at work. Let's go on and talk about something else right now, and just have a phrase that you can divert the conversation.
We're a team, and we may have very different political opinions. There's actually little reason to talk too much politics in an environment where you have a single purpose to help that client or that animal. And if it gets in the way of being a team member, then that area of discussion should just be put aside. There's a recent awakening in veterinary medicine that diversity, equity, and inclusion is really important. I think the George Floyd killing was kind of ignited a new set of energy, but many of us had that energy already. That just kind of set a flame to it. What we really need is for this increase in diversity improves the profession in a number of areas.
Where should we go from here? I honestly believe it's conversations like we're having right now, just speaking honestly and bravely and trying to learn about each other. And how can we create those environments in our veterinary institutions, in our hospitals, where we feel supported and understood? So I would like to see more honest conversations about the profession at every level within the school, nationally, at conferences. And I think it would make really a big difference.
No prejudgments about level of treatment or just based on how people walk or act or look.
So personally, I want to hold my family and friends accountable first on all the topics discussed, the microaggressions, the stereotypes, how to navigate the tough conversations. I feel like it starts at home and it branches outward. So I feel like advocating for that now with myself and with my family and friends, it will go a long way.
For me, I would like to really just continue having these conversations and, bridging these gaps, because I feel like that's a part of what was missing in general. So me just being able to just talk it out and try to come to us understanding for me is a big thing. And also just advocating and showing others like it's possible, even though we may have different backgrounds or whatever, we have more in common than we would think. So I want to keep pushing that forward. Thank you guys for tuning in to this conversation, and we can't wait to see you again.